Calling the El Monte City School District's Board of Education meeting to order today, Monday, December 12th, 2022. I will begin now with roll call, beginning with Mrs. Jennifer Cobian,
Present.
Mrs. Lisette Mendez Garcia,
Present.
Mrs. Elizabeth Rivas,
Present.
Mr. David Siegrist,
Present.
and Julia Ruedas present. Now, if we can please have everyone stand for the flag salute. Please put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will begin with our approval of minutes, beginning with consideration of approval of minutes for the November 14th, 2022 meeting. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Siegrist. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. And at this time, I would like to pass it over to Dr. Garcia for the administrative services.
Thank you, President Rivas. Well, this is a very special evening for us. We have the opportunity to say thank you, and not farewell and not goodbye, because our board president, Mrs. Rivas, has accepted the offer to represent kids, community, family on the city council. And so I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Ms. Rivas for her years of service on the board. There has been so much that we've gone through. It feels like, even though it was a 4-year term, perhaps it felt a little bit longer because of the pandemic and everything that we went through. And I couldn't have asked for a better board member to really represent kids and families and the needs of this community during this time. And so, as much as I'm sorry to see you leave, Ms. Rivas, we're also very happy that you will be representing community and kids on the city council. And at this time, I'd like to invite our vice president, Ms. Mendez Garcia, to speak, to say a few words.
Yes, just on behalf of the board, thank you so much, Ms. Weathers, for these past 4 years of service. During your term, you supported and guided the district during a global pandemic when so much was unknown. However, you stayed focused on student needs and advocated for the resources that they needed. As a board member, you governed as a team member, actively listened to staff and community, attended many community district and school functions to engage with your constituents, served on the equity committee, and above all, remained focused on the district priorities and goals. You served as a role model for the community with your professionalism and your respect. We know in this new role in City Council, you will continue to advocate for children and families. And with that, we have a little going away gift.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you very much to each one of my fellow board members. I first want to, and I always begin with God, right? Because especially these past 3 years have really taught us, right? The importance of being healthy, staying healthy for our loved ones. And definitely without God's love and support, we wouldn't be able, right, to experience all the beautiful things that He has for us. So thanks to Him and to my family, to my parents that have been very supportive. As you know, the role in public service does take a lot of sacrifice, especially away from our families, right? And but this is something that we love to do, that I love to do, and to answer the call, right, and be here for our children, for our families. So thank you, especially to well, again, my family, my brothers, my sister, to my friends, such as very special friends like my dear friends that are here with me today, Mr. Ricardo Padilla and Ms. Sandra Armenta. So thank you so much, and especially and dearly to our community, right? Our community, our entire community, again, fellow board members, our cabinet, our community, our entire school community, our children, and our parents. It's been an honor to serve as your school board members. Thank you so much.
I can please ask the board to step up also with Ms. Reda so we can take a picture with the board. Yeah, in front of the podium, please, or in front of the dais. Yes. Nice touch, Mr. Dasmati. Actually, if we want to keep it up, and then I'm sure we'll be taking a few other pictures. We're going to continue this evening with our oath of office. We're going to begin with Miss Elizabeth Rivas, Beth Rivas. She's going to be sworn in today by Miss Julia Ruedas. Yes.
Okay. Ready, Mrs. Rivas?
I'm ready. Thank you for doing this.
Wonderful. So please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Elizabeth Rivas,
I, Elizabeth Rivas,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully
discharge the
discharge the duties
duties
upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations, Mrs. Rivas.
Thank you. Thank you to my family for being here. It's such a fun treat to see you guys sitting there in the audience. My husband Freddie and my 4 kids, Andrew, Mia, Annabelle, and Aaron, are all here. Andrew was about 3 years old when I first ran for office, and I was pregnant with Mia. And the others were born as well when I was serving and have gone through our district. And Aaron now is in 7th grade, our youngest in 7th grade at Rio Hondo School. So to be able to watch you guys go through these schools and be able to serve on the board has been a great honor and a wonderful pleasure for me. Thank you for being here.
And next, we will be swearing in Mrs. Lisette Mendez Garcia. She will be sworn in by Jennifer Cobian.
Okay, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Lisette Mendez Garcia,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental
reservation
reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Huge thank you to my parents, Marcos and Idalia Mendez, for being here today and just always being supportive. My husband couldn't be here today, but 4 years ago we started dating, and I told him, I think I'm gonna run for school board, and he was so supportive, and again, so supportive once again of my reelection. And I'm gonna tell this funny story that for every board meeting, my parents are amazing, and they go pick up my dog Spartacus because they know my commute from work and I don't have time. So again, it's all those little things that enable me to be in public service, right? It takes a village, and it takes families that are home and husbands that are home taking care of the children so that we can be here and to serve the community. So thank you again.
Congratulations. And next, we will be swearing in Ms. Christina Flores. She will be sworn in by Ms. Lisette Mendez Garcia.
So please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Christina Flores,
Do solemnly swear that
do solemnly swear that
I will support and defend
I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California,
I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter. Thank you, Lisette. Lisette has been a great mentor to me throughout this whole process, so I definitely want to thank her for being supportive. I also want to thank my fiance who is here today. He's been very patient and could not be a better partner throughout this whole process. Thank you. I look forward to working with the school community and the board. I know they're all very passionate about the school community. So I look forward to hitting the ground running. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ms. Flores. At this time, we do have some representatives from the community that would like to congratulate the board and thank Ms. Redas for her service. I'd like to call up Ms. Armenta, representing Senator Rubio's office.
This way.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Armenta Rosemead. Wrong. Hello, my name is Sandra Armenta Lopez, and I'm here on behalf of State Senator Susan Rubio. Thank you so much, Ms. Redas, for your dedication, your service, your leadership here on the El Monte City School District. We do have a certificate for you, and we know that you're going to do great things in the city of El Monte as a council member for the 3rd District. On behalf of the California State Senate, it is my privilege to present you with a certificate in recognition of your outstanding leadership as president of the El Monte City School District Board of Education. I commend your exceptional integrity and loyalty to our shared constituents. You have represented the school district with honor since November of 2018. Your invaluable contributions have made a difference in the quality of life of our community, and I thank you for your public service. Signed by State Senator Susan Rubio. I also have certificates on behalf of State Senator Susan Rubio for the re-election of board member Beth Rivas, and again, the re-election of board member Lisette Mendez Garcia, and newly elected board member Cristina Flores. The senator looks forward in working with all of you. El Monte is still in her district, even after redistricting, so we look forward to building on that partnership that we've already have established, and just know that we're here for anything that all of you need. Just a little FYI, budget requests are going to be submitted in January, so Dr. Garcia, just know that we're here again to congratulate you and to offer our service to build El Monte even better.
Ms. Flores, do you want to come up, and then we'll get a picture there? Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite our mayor, Ms. Jessica Ancona, to come on up and say a few words. And I do want to acknowledge that there are certificates from the City of El Monte that are forthcoming that we will make sure that we get to the members that are going to be presented and recognized this evening.
Thank you. And I'm just coming from work, so excuse me. It was a cold, rainy day today, so I didn't quite prepare to come in today. But learning that you did have your board meeting today and you would be sworn in new members, and also paying tribute to Ms. Ruedas here for her years of service here on the school board. I wanted just to take an opportunity to congratulate all of you. Ms. Ruedas, for your 4 years of service here on the school board, having started my political career here at El Monte City School District, I know what a joy it is to work with the children and families and the wonderful educators in our district. So congratulations to you, and also congratulations to Ms. Lisette Mendez Garcia, Ms. Beth Rivas, and the newest member, Cristina Flores. Congratulations to you all. I look forward to continued partnerships here in the city of El Monte, and here's to much success. Thank you.
I also want to invite Mr. Ricardo Padilla, representing Del Monte Union High School District.
Yes, good evening, El Monte City School District Board of Education. I know that one of my colleagues, Mr. Florencio Briones, is also here. If you'd like to come up, Mr. Briones, and we will present these certificates. First, I'd like to present a certificate of recognition from the El Monte Union High School District. Like I said, Ricardo Padilla is my name, and my colleague, Mr. Florencio Briones. Thank you for your service, Honorable Julia Ruedas, and we too want to wish you the best as you move on to serve us on the El Monte City Council. It's important to have educators up there to always remember that our future lies with our kids. You know, anything that happens starts with kids and in the schools, and having you there makes me very comfortable, and I know it makes our community very comfortable knowing that you will take care of our children's needs, even if you're on the city. Thank you for your service with the El Monte City School District Board of Education. Your dedication to the school community is truly admirable. Congratulations from the El Monte Union High School District Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Actually, I'm going to take a step back and take off my mask. So next up, we'd like to recognize Mrs. Elizabeth Rivas for your years of service here on the board of the El Monte City School District, to congratulate you on your re-election this year. On behalf of the El Monte Union High School District, we present the certificate of recognition to Ms. Beth Rivas for your re-election to the El Monte City School District Board of Education during the November 8, 2022 election. Your dedication and service to the school community are truly commendable. Congratulations to you on behalf of the El Monte Union High School District Board of Trustees. And I want to say personally on behalf of myself and my colleagues, I always share this with our member school districts, that your success and your student success is also our success. So we look forward to continued partnerships with the El Monte City School District and with you as well. And really briefly to Ms. Ruedas, congratulations on your election to the El Monte City Council. We look forward to a continued partnership with the city as well. And so we wish you nothing but the best there. So Ms. Rivas, if you'd like to join us up here for a photo.
While Ms. Rivas is coming up here, I would also like to extend a warm thank you. You know, I know that education runs through your entire family. I have been a product of this district back when your father was part of the Board of Education, and I know that your brother is one of the best math teachers and track coaches that we have in our high school. So thank you for your entire family always being so giving, from your father to your brother to yourself. Public service runs in your family, and I want to acknowledge that and say thank you for that. Next, we'd like to recognize another very respected and honorable school board member in our school district, Lisette Mendez Garcia, for your re-election to the El Monte City School District Board of Education during the November 8, 2022 election. Your dedication and service to the school community is truly commendable. You know, congratulations, and I know that it's very special that your mother and father are here, and I know your mother was also a retired employee of our school district, and just this month I've had the opportunity of working with her on 2 separate occasions, so it's great to see you again. But great daughter, and thank you for loaning her to the El Monte City School District for her service. She's an excellent psychologist, an excellent school board member, and an excellent person, so we'd like to recognize you. If you can please come up. Congratulations. And last, but equally as important, we have our newest member of the El Monte City School District, Ms. Christina Flores. If you can please come on up here. Thank you for a wonderful election and a great outcome and that put you onto the El Monte City School District Board of Education during this November 8th, 2022 election. Your commitment and service to the school community will be invaluable. Congratulations from the El Monte Union High School District Board of Trustees, and I'm glad that you couldn't have found a better mentor. Miss Lisette Mendez is an awesome person. So if you can please come up here and be recognized.
If I could just say really quick before you head back, it takes a special person to, one, run for office, but two, to run for a Board of Education. Sometimes I think the Board of Education positions are really undervalued and underrated, but everything that you do here impacts our students, not only today, but into the future, and it makes a significant impact, both negative or positive, depending on the decisions that you make. But I look forward to working with you and the rest of your colleagues in the El Monte City School District. I had the opportunity of meeting you during the California School Board Association Education Conference a few weeks ago, and I feel that there is going to be a lot of work that we can do together to better our families, to move our community forward, and I just look forward to years of a great relationship, not only with you, but the rest of your colleagues. So congratulations again.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge the presentations this evening. At this time, we're going to take a short break that will allow us to once again thank Ms. Rivas personally and welcome Ms. Flores to the board. So we'll take a very short break. There are some refreshments in the lobby. And if I can have the board step up one more time for a picture, we'd like to invite our mayor, Ms. Jessica Ancona, to come on up and take a picture with the board. Thank you. Enjoy refreshments. 50. Thank you very much for joining us or for continuing with us. We're going to move on to the annual organization of the Board of Education. The annual organization is in effect from December 2022 through December 2023, and we will be electing the officers. The first action item is the consideration of approval of El Monte City School District Board President. Is there a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Mendez Garcia.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Mendez Garcia, do you accept the nomination?
I accept.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next item is consideration of approval of El Monte City School District Board Vice President.
I'd like to nominate Ms. Elizabeth Rivas.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Rivas, do you accept the nomination?
I accept. Good.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, and thank you, Mrs. Rivas. Next item is consideration of approval of El Monte City School District Board Clerk. Is there a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Mr. David Segrist.
I would decline. I would prefer Loxta, because I'm learning how to do that. Okay, thank you very much, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Is there another nomination?
Then I would like to nominate Ms. Christina Flores.
Is
I'll
there a
second the nomination.
Second. Mrs. Flores, do you accept the nomination?
I accept.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, Mrs. Flores. Ms. Flores, not Mrs. yet. And item number 4, consideration of approval of the selection of representative to the Los Angeles County School Trustee Association.
I'll nominate Mr. David Segrist.
I will gladly accept, thank you, because I'm still learning how to do it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Segrist.
You're welcome.
And the last item is the consideration of approval of the El Monte City School District Board of Education annual meeting schedule.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Rivas. Any discussion? Motion, no, I was already going to call for I was going to already announce it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting back over to Mrs. Mendez Garcia to continue the meeting.
Okay, give me 1 second here. Yes, thank you. I need my gavel. Okay, we're now going to moving on to communications. Do we have any public communications? Okay. All right, we have Ms. Gloria Delphine. Do I read the address? No, okay. And the topic is regarding the El Monte Elementary Teachers Association.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gloria Delphine, the El Monte Elementary Teachers Association new president this year. Hello, Superintendent, School Board, and I have my 3 children here with me. I'm sorry I haven't been able to come and introduce ourselves. As you can see, it's a little difficult with the kids, but I just wanted to come and introduce myself and say that we look forward to working together, and we've been working with the district since the summer, and I met some of you at our school board dinner, and I know some of you from the past. The last several months I haven't been able to make it because as the superintendents know, my son was in the hospital for a few days, and then they all got ear infections, and again, we had to monitor because he got pneumonia. The first time it was just a random cold that put him in the hospital. So a lot of illness, as we know our families are experiencing that too, and our members. But I wanted to share our goal for EMETA this year. Our goals are communication, transparency, and member participation. So we're really working on communicating with our members, communicating with our superintendents, communicating with our school board of what's going on with EMETA and our members. And just some of the topics that we've recently have discussed is like workload, safety in the classroom with behavior, but also safety with COVID and other things. And there's some other things that we'll be discussing at the bargaining table, but that we also discuss as the superintendents. So I look forward to, again, working with you, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any written communications?
No written communication has come forward.
Okay, now we'll move on to board member communications, starting off with Ms. Cobian.
Thank you. Just want to start off with congratulations to everyone. Definitely looking forward to this governing team continuing the work that we've been doing, and to wish a happy holidays to everyone who's here and the school community in general. I know there's a lot of fun school performances coming up this week, so definitely looking forward to some of those. Had the opportunity to participate in our CSBA conference, which was, definitely gave us a lot of good insight, I think, going forward. And at the Tamalata last week, it was fun to see the community all come together. So I just, want to say that I'm really, proud of the work that we've done this year and looking forward to another good year coming up. Thanks.
Right, now we have Ms. Flores.
Thank you. I do have a few things I did want to share. I also attended the CSBA conference, which I had a chance to learn about, really everything about being a board member, which was great. And it also allowed me to connect with our current board members and also meet other board members within the surrounding districts. So it was really nice. I also had a chance to attend Columbia's Centennial Celebration, which was amazing. The student speakers and performers were great. Some of those student speakers, I was amazed. They were kindergartners speaking like they were, ready to just go out and run for office. So it was also nice to tour the classrooms with all the Google Chromebooks in the classrooms and seeing them in action. I was like, wow, it's definitely changed since I was last in middle school. And then I also had a chance to attend the CTA board member dinner, which was great. I had a chance to meet the ETA board president, and she's a political action committee chair. So wonderful things that I was involved with, and look forward to more wonderful events. Happy holidays as well.
Next, we have Ms. Rivas.
Well, thank you very much for the wonderful celebration already tonight. The swearing in is, it can be just a procedural thing, but it was wonderful to have so many guests come in, even though maybe it feels like a big show, but to have so many of the different public servants from different areas of the city come together, all under the same roof, was very nice to see. So thank you for that. I'll just repeat what everyone here is already saying. The Columbia event was so amazing. The students were immensely impressive. The way that the confidence with which they carried themselves, from the time we entered the gates and they were welcoming us, to their speeches and the classroom tours, and the way they spoke about their 7 habits and their leadership skills was all very, very impressive and heartwarming and encouraging for the future. Not to mention just happy birthday, Columbia School. The holiday mixer here was also amazing to be able to spend some time, and I got to know a couple of teachers and staff people that I hadn't met before. So that was personally a great time for me. And the spread was wonderful. This room, amazing. The way that this facility was used for that event was outstanding. So thank you to our food service team for putting that on. And of course, the Tamalada, another wonderful community event. And many congrats to Mrs. Stratus for her recognition that night.
Mr. Segrist?
Yes, I'd like to say Merry Christmas to everyone, and Happy Hanukkah and Happy Kwanzaa. And I had a boy tell me, he said, do you realize when you say Happy Holidays, you're really saying Happy Holy Days? So when people say religion's out, it's there. I have a very lengthy report on the CSBA AEC convention, and then rather than read the whole thing, I think I'd just rather type it up and send it to our superintendent, and she can pass it on. I think it'd be much better. But I learned a great deal, and I would like to welcome our new board member and let her know that she sits on a board that's very collaborative, very supportive. Trust me, because I remember when I first came to this board, hand-holding was there all the way through, so you've got a lot of support, and congratulations for being on this board. And one thing I'd like to say is I had the honor of having the dinner with the EMETA, and I sat with the president of the EMETA, Mrs. Delphine, who explained to me how difficult her life had become outside of teaching with her children. She spent 2.5 days in the hospital with her son with I think he had COVID, then he had rhino, whatever that is. But I suddenly came to light that sometimes we only focus on, well, the teachers are working here, the staff, the employees in our district. Sometimes, and I'm guilty, we forget what happens outside with their lives outside of teaching. They also have personal lives. But I really admire the teachers that are able to manage, and the administration and the cabinet that managed to go through this whole COVID mess, which I don't think is over yet. I hope it is. But sometimes we forget about that. And I did have one request from a number of teachers that I met. They want volunteers to come into the classroom to work with our children. But, caveat, they must be trained to come in there. My experience once, when I was teaching 5th grade, I had a volunteer come in, a high school girl, who ended up flirting with my boys and never did do anything but that. So trained volunteers is something that we should offer to kind of fill in, because you can't beat one-on-one. But in closing, I will type up my report. I don't want to read it. It's very lengthy, but I learned a lot about the Brown Act, things that I never thought about. And one caveat, I'll just say it now, we were told that if you do not have your staff with clipboards, if something happens and they don't record it, and you go into a legal situation, you're going to be asked to provide information about what happened. And some of these cases of special ed, they go for 7 years before the jury sees it. So I'll stop there. But anyway, welcome, Ms. Flores, and you'll do a great job. You'll have a great support. Thank you.
And just to echo everyone's sentiments, the 19th annual Tamalada was another wonderful celebration, really bringing back the community together at the pandemic. It was so great to see so many elected together, so many community members. Special thank you to the Amani Promise Foundation and the Amani Coalition of Latino Professionals for putting this event together. And also thank you to the student volunteers that were out there passing out the food and organizing everything. So special thank you to I believe it was a high school, right? High school volunteers. And again, congratulations to Ms. Stratus on winning the Bobby Salcedo Esperanza Award. And then the next thing, like my colleagues attended the Columbia Centennial event / Leadership Day. And again, just great job to Columbia, the committee that put that event together. I know on everything else that they're doing to also have to plan such an amazing event. So just kudos and congratulations. And again, the staffers just doing a wonderful job. And with the new administration there, I know that they're going to continue to do great work there at Columbia Elementary. But yes, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone. Rest, self-care. Don't check your work email, as tempting as it can be. And again, so thank you, everyone, and welcome, Ms. Cristina Flores. So glad to have you here. All right. Next, we're going to go into closed session. In closed session, we have 3 items. Closed session items pursuant to Government Code for 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiators. Then item 2, we have a student matter consideration of approval of educational placement agreement for student date of birth 6/13/2008. And item 3, consideration of approval of conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 45956.9A on 08H 20221000762. Student date of birth is 12/28/2013 versus El Monte City School District. Thank you.
I have to stand for a while. I like to sit for too long. I hear you. God bless.
forgot already, but I think like my old school, it used to be fiscal year. Most of the schools are starting off because for us, I'm in an email group with all the executive assistants in the state, and mostly everybody does what we do December, unless they're county school board, county school district school board, or they have it written some other way in their bylaws.
Well, yeah, because the voting for them is done in November, so.
Oh, yeah, that makes more sense. And then the. You guys were having fun out here without us, huh? We could hear you laughing.
You were listening to something else, 'cause it was not us. We're looking at the clock going, oh my God.
What's taking them so long?
Oh.
Okay, Christina. So we're gonna have Lisette sit here, and you're gonna sit right over here. Is that good?
It's easier.
This one, two, this one.
I'm saving this for you. Your stuff here. Let me move her stuff. Yeah, okay. Is that your brownie or her brownie?
It's hers.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Are we good? Yes? Okay. We will resume open session at 7:02. So during closed session for item 1, the board discussed closed session items pursuant to Government Code 54957.6, conference with labor negotiations. For item 2, during closed session, the board voted to approve the stipulated expulsion agreement, expulsion for case SE 001.2021-22. And for item 3, the board voted to approve the compromise and release agreement for OAH case number 2022-10076250. Both were 5-0. Moving on to our action and consent agenda. Are there any items board members would like to pull at this time to vote separately? Okay. I will now ask for a motion for the action and consent agenda.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Rivas. Are there any questions or discussion on any of the items? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to our actions section, starting with number 1, consideration of approval of certification of signatures.
President Mendez Garcia and governing board members, before you this evening is the approval of the certification of signatures. This evening, the board reorganized, and we will be submitting the names to LACO after you certify this item.
Do we have a motion for item 1?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Rivas. Are there any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to item 2, consideration of approval of purchase orders.
President Mendez Garcia and members of the governing board, before you is the November purchase order report. There's 317 purchase orders listed on the report, totaling $822,000. Some of the purchase orders I'd like to highlight on the report, there's a purchase order for $157,000 to the school excess liability fund. That is the property and liability insurance coverage for any claims the district has in excess of $5 million. Some other items to highlight on the purchase order report, we have a $58,000 purchase order with Southwest School Supply for the purchase of replacement HEPA air filters, which we will be utilizing over the summer to replace out all of our classroom HEPA filters over the winter break. Also of note is $40,000 worth of paper product that we're purchasing from Liberty Paper. We still are utilizing paper here, although we have Chromebooks in all of our classrooms. And actually, the price of paper has increased post-COVID. With a lot of the paper mills closing, the price of paper has gone up significantly. Although we're buying less paper, with the introduction of more Chromebooks and the one-to-one devices, the price of paper has gone up significantly. And we are buying 250 licenses from Rosetta Stone for $24,000 to support newcomer students in the assistance of their language development.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. Right. Do we have a motion for item 2 regarding approval of purchase orders?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Seegers. Are there any questions or discussion regarding purchases? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain.
The motion carries. Now for item 3, consideration of the approval of the 2022-23 first interim financial report.
Thank you, Board President Mendez Garcia and members of the governing board. I'll introduce Ms. Margaret Lamb, who is the district's fiscal director. She joins us, has now been with us for over 3 years. She formerly was the budget director at the Los Angeles Unified School District. So sometimes you may hear her refer to her prior district. She's very humble. She used to be the budget director for the Los Angeles Unified School District, a little known school district that you may have heard of, located in Southern California. Tonight she'll be giving us a summary on the first interim financial report. The board gets 4 regular updates from the financial team, one time in June for the adopted budget, another time in December, an update at the first interim report, another time in March for the second interim financial report, again in June as we adopt the next budget, and in September, once we close the books over the summer, we receive the unaudited actuals. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Margaret Lamb to provide the board with an update on the first interim financial report that you'll be voting on later in the meeting.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Garcia, members of the cabinet, and members of the public. Tonight, I'll be presenting an overview of the district's 22-23 first interim. As question arises throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask them. This slide is just some of the common acronyms that will be discussed from the slides that we'll be discussing tonight. This one is just a review of the budget cycle. We closed the book in June, and in September, we brought into the board the 21-22 unaudited actual, and we're basically in the first interim, which we're asking the board to certify the 22-23 first interim report. So why do we do the first interim report? AB 1200 requires the school district to certify that they could survive the current year and the 2 next out years. So we're doing certification, whether it's positive, qualified, or negative. Positive means that we have a positive ending balance, and we could meet our financial obligation in this year and the 2 out years. Qualified means we may or may not meet our financial obligation, and negative means we could not meet, definitely could not meet our financial obligation, and that would require aggressive corrective action. Tonight, we're asking the board to certify, we're submitting the first interim with a positive certification. So for the first interim, we have other operating funds outside of the general fund, and we're submitting a total of $228 million in revenues and $197.2 million in expenditure. Please note that we expected to end the year with a surplus of $31 million. $20 million is coming from the general fund, mostly in restricted balances, and then $8 million of anticipated fund balance. This is in anticipation of the springtime bond issuance that we're planning around March. And then we also have a $2.5 million ending balance in the cafeteria program, but this has been earmarked for a spending plan that CDE requires us. Every time you have a fund balance in cafeteria, you're required to submit a spending plan to CDE to make sure that we spend down those balances. So the next slide shows the 22-23 revenues, operating funds. Majority of our revenue still comes from local control funding formula of $100.6 million. I'll go through the different components of LCFF in the succeeding slide. We also have $51.6 million in federal and $51.1 million in state revenue. This is approximately 23% of our revenue. This is artificially high this year and in the last year and probably in the next 2 years, just because of a lot of one-time funding that we're getting from the federal and from the state for state revenues. And I'll go through the different one-time funding sources as well in the succeeding slide. And then we have the local revenues of $9.5 million, which is approximately 6% of the total revenue. We have the 22-23 expenditure shown out in this slide. Our salaries and employee benefit continues to account for majority of our expenditure. Contracts and services is higher than normal just because some of the placeholder for the ELOG funding for some of our after-school funding is sitting in contracted services as we plan out how we would be spending the funding for that categorical resource. And then before I go into the general fund, I wanted to just do a brief review. There's really 2 types of funding in the general fund, what we call unrestricted resources and restricted resources. Unrestricted is basically you could use it for any specific, there's no constraint on how we could use it as long as it's not prohibited by law. But for restricted resources, it's almost like there's condition on the receipt of the money, so we need to use it for specific purpose as set forth by either statute, or if it's a grant from a private company, then the donor set forth by the donor as a condition of receipt. So this slide shows the first interim unrestricted and restricted for the general fund. The unrestricted portion of the budget of the expenditure accounts for 35% of the budget, and 65% of the total estimated expenditure is in the restricted program. Normally, we would see unrestricted side of the house a little bit more higher than 35%, but as I've said, there's a lot of one-time funding that's coming from federal and state. That's why making the unrestricted higher. In the general fund, we continue to, salaries and benefit continues to account for majority of the expenditure, and it does include the 173 million of expenditure, does include 23.3 million of ESSER funding. What I want to highlight in the expenditure is the contribution, or in the general fund, is the contribution of 50.6 million from unrestricted to restricted. This could be accounted for 34 million of the for the LCAP actions and services, which the board adopted last June, and the add-on K3 CSR. It also includes the district support to special ed, as it is severely underfunded by federal and state resources. I know I keep on repeating the special ed contribution, but it's a big chunk of the contribution, and our federal government, unfortunately, is not fully funding special ed. Thus, the unrestricted side of the house has to contribute. And lastly, it contains the 3% contribution to routine restricted maintenance, which is a function of our total expenditure. Again, as I mentioned, for the interim projection, AB 1200 requires us to show not just the current year, but the 2 out years as well. So this slide shows the 23-24 and 24-25, how we're going to close it. We should note that in 23-24 and 24-25, the out-year projection assumes a switch from unrestricted to restricted of about 4.4 million. This is needed to help the district meet its 3% reserve requirement, as well as the district to help the district address its structural deficit. The district continues to redesign program to use its existing resources for a student who need the most support. So that's how we're technically using our good reserve as a bridge, so that when the reserve is depleted, we would be in a good place to actually sustain our program. So let me just go through the education funding history, because it causes a lot. The changes during the first interim is caused a lot by some of the changes in the LCFF model. So for 40 years, so the district gets, or the state need to give school district, or 40% of the state revenue has to go through to education budget through Prop 98. And for 40 years, for 40 years, it was under the revenue limit formula and about 50 categorical programs. And then in 2013-14, local control funding formula was implemented, and then it rolled over about 50 categorical programs into the formula. This gives the district more local control, but at the same time, it requires more transparency in terms of where are we using our money, what is our priorities, and whatnot. and how are we serving our, not just our students as a whole, but also our targeted student population, which includes low-income earners, our foster youths, our English learners. So the formula was in place for about 8 years. So, like the revenue limit was there for 40 years, and then within 8 years, the local control funding formula got changed. So in 2022, the local funding formula changed in terms of the concentration add-on. I would go through how we get our concentration money, but technically what happened here is that we used to get funded for 50% of the base for concentration grant, and they increased the formula to 65%. Then, this year, in 22-23, they changed the formula again. And the changes that I'm mentioning, I know it's a change, and people would say, oh, local control funding formula is not as stable as the revenue limit, but where the state is going is actually beneficial for our students. So what changes in the 22-23 is the 21-22 COVID attendance yield protection. What happened here is that a lot of school districts across the state had a very, the only term that I could use is like bad attendance rate. So what the state did was they allow us to actually use the 19-20 attendance rate and apply it to our 21-22 enrollment. This would mean that the attendance rate or the ADA that we could claim in terms of funding is higher than what we would have received if we use the 21-22 attendance or the ADA. And then they also added a big push by our current governor is the transitional kindergarten. So they did an add-on for TK add-on, and then they also did because I think a lot of school district is also experiencing enrollment decline. They also added an option of a rolling prior 3 years funded ADA. And then they finally heard some of the calls from a lot of the school district in the same situation as us. They're going to add COLA, or the cost of living adjustment, to the transportation add-on. We didn't get it this year, but we're getting it for 23-24, starting 23-24.
Well, and just a quick comment, Ms. Lam, on that slide. So as a board member, when you look at the local control funding formula, we're approaching the 10-year anniversary of when that law was introduced and signed into law. And so when we look at the institutional memory at the up in Sacramento with our legislators, there's only about 20 legislators currently in office at the moment that voted on that bill back in 2013. By 2027, there will remain 0 legislator assembly members that still remain as elected officials. So as a board member, as we look at the good that LCFF has brought along to school districts and the control that we have locally in our school districts to do what's best for kids locally, as opposed to the state mandating, here's a categorical program, we're going to tell you how to spend it. It's important that we continue those advocacy efforts to educate our elected officials, because many of them were not there back in 2013, and the institutional memory that perhaps was there back in 2013 is quickly dissipating, and it will erode in the next few years as we reach 2027, because none of the elected officials, maybe sooner if they get termed out or don't get reelected, will be part of the 120-member assembly and house up there in Sacramento. So just a comment for the board. It's LCFF was introduced 10 years ago, and we hope that it will stick around for another 10 years, 40 years, longer than the revenue limit did, because it's brought about a lot of good changes for school districts with the focus on equity and a shift away from equality, right? And also allowing school districts through the LCAP to locally control and make decisions as to what we think is best for students, and not a decision that's made by some assembly members up in Sacramento. Local school boards know, local school district leaders know what's best for the district, and so that's just something to keep in mind as we look forward, because the further and further we get away from the 2013 introduction of LCFF, we're starting to see, unfortunately, the introduction of more and more restrictive categorical programs. and Ms. Lam will discuss that on a future slide. And so some of that is as a result of COVID and the pandemic, and so hopefully it's just temporary in nature. But it's important that we continue to advocate that the funds come through the base grant, supplemental concentration grant, so that local school boards and districts can make the decisions locally, because we think that is the best approach and what's best for the community.
I was also just going to piggyback on that, and one of the things at CSBA they were talking about is like the measure that passed in the fall with the arts, funding, which we all definitely support, but it's again that move to kind of pigeonhole funding and directing exactly what it should be used for everybody as opposed to what the local needs are. So I think we've talked about our lobbying efforts and things like that, and I think it's important for us to keep all of that in mind as well. Thank you.
Okay, so the next slide is just a review of how we get the local control funding formula, because it's majority of the district funding is being taken from there. So we get a base grant. That means like for every students that we have, we would get a per pupil amount. And then on top of that, we get what it's called a supplemental grant. So this one is based off our what we call, I'll be mentioning it a lot in the next few slides, unduplicated per pupil percentage. So we so if 90% or 88% of our students are part of the unduplicated per pupil or the targeted student population, which is foster youth, English learners, and low income, then we would get an additional 20% of the base per ADA. So that's the supplemental grant. And then there's the concentration grant component. So any UPP or unduplicated pupil percentage that is above 55%, we get 65% per ADA, 65% of the base per ADA. So we get an add-on on top of the supplemental grant. So in 2022-23, we receive a base grant, and we would normally in a given year get COLA. This year, the statutory COLA is 6.56%. And we get this every year, and it's just because of I'm sure you've heard about inflation and whatnot. So that's why our COLA this year is a little higher than normal. And then in 22-23, what the state did as part of the enacted budget, our June budget actually had a 6.2% additional base already reflected. And then in August, when we brought to the board the 45-day revise, we up it to almost 6.3. And after that, it changed again. It's now at 6.7. So that's part of the additional funding for LCFF. And then we had the K3 grade span adjustment of 10.4% of the base for our K2 grades 3 students. And then we have the supplemental and concentration grant, which we get through as a percentage of our unduplicated pupil percentage. And then what also is included is the add-on for TK expansion. So this one is just a different look at LCFF, a different way of slicing it. So what to note in this slide is that we get approximately almost $10,000 per student, or $9,872 to be exact. And for supplemental and concentration, for supplemental grant, we get approximately 2,158 unduplicated student, and concentration grant for about 7,400 per student. That is above the 55% threshold. So what's the significance in LCFF? So the changes that I was talking about is that in order to mitigate ADA loss, for starting 22-23, we now have options on how our funded ADA is calculated. In the old statute, you could either select your current year if you're an increasing enrollment district, or you could opt in to use your prior year ADA if you're a declining enrollment district. This year, with certain conditions, you could actually use the three most recent prior year ADA. Like it's a three-year rolling average of the prior 3 years. And then you compare whichever gets you the most funded ADA, that's what you use for LCFF calculation. For the district's case, for first interim, we're using the rolling 3-year average since we meet the condition of getting those funding. And then what else is special for the 22-23 is what I talked about the attendance yield protection. So for 21-22, we applied the 19-20 attendance rate to our 21-22 enrollment because it was higher than normal. In our 1920, our attendance rate is at around 96%, but during the 21-22 fiscal year, it was the first year of in-person. We were at the low 90s, like closer to 91, if I'm not mistaken. Like it's around that 91. So we opted to apply the 1920 to our 21-22 enrollment since we meet the condition to use it. The next slide is also just another, different way of slicing and dicing LCFF. But the main point here is that we receive 105 million in LCFF revenue. 70.9 million of it is coming from state aid, and when we have education protection account of 19.2, and then the local property taxes kicks in at 15.4 million. So when property market is not as good, then the local property taxes drops, then that means the state would have to backfill it because we're entitled to get the 105.5 million. So what does, LCFF, some of the trends that actually impacts LCFF is, of course, our enrollment. So the district enrollment, unfortunately, continues to decline at an average of 3.5 million. We lost 232 kids from 21-22, which is a decline of 3.2%. And with the current projection and looking at just the live births for 2020, which means our incoming kinder classes, we are projected to reach below 7,000 students by 24-25. And I've looked at the trend since 24-25. We basically, in the last 10 years, lost 2,500 students, or about 28% of the student population of our enrollment since 14-15, which is a big drop. Another thing that impacts the LCFF formula is the unduplicated student percentage. So we did every 4 years, the district is required to have a LCFF base year. And 22-23 is an LCFF base year. So the numbers that we have right now, in the last few years, we've shown an annual decrease of about 1%. The 1% decrease is just because it's mostly pertaining to the students that leaves and the new student that comes in. Because our existing student, we use their 18-19 data for our LCFF percentages. And in 22-23, the new base year, it's showing that our unduplicated count, we have a current estimate of 88%. We would be submitting to the CalPADS data at the end of this week or before the end of December. We would be submitting, and we would have some preliminary numbers, definite preliminary numbers for our unduplicated count. But there is a big drop from the 94 in our last base year to 88% for 22-23. The only mitigating factor here is that for unduplicated student percentage, the formula is a rolling 3-year average. But the 3-year that we're talking about in the unduplicated student percentage is not the prior 3 years. It's your current year and the 2 prior out years. So even our 22-23 then is impacted by the 88% that we're seeing for this current year. And then we estimate that, like, you know, as we go through the out years, then we lost the benefit of the higher prior year. So that's why in the next few years, we see a 91, an 89, and an 87% rolling 3-year average for unduplicated student percentage.
And just to reinforce this point for the board, so for the most part, this is your low income. Although we have English learner students, FOSS students that contribute to this. This is a good indicator of the percentage of students in the district that qualify for public assistance or qualify under the whatever the poverty line is set by the federal government. So as the state of California has been increasing minimum wage, right? This poverty line factor is driven by the federal level. And so you're seeing some income mobility, also cost of living is increasing, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And we think that there is somewhat of a demographic shift in El Monte as rents continue to rise rapidly, the cost of living increases. I think it's contributing to some families potentially that are moving out of the community because of the cost of living increasing. So it is something that we have been monitoring. We knew it was going to materialize. And unfortunately, it looks like it's here to stay. Also with the implementation of universal meals for all, that's something that's hitting all districts across the state. And as we look at more locally here to neighboring districts, they're also seeing a decline in the percentage of students that they're qualifying under the unduplicated pupil status. So that's just a comment that is going to impact us because the lower that number drops, the less revenue per pupil you get, the higher it is. It means that you get more funding pumped into your district.
Yeah. So just to put it in a fiscal context, for every percentage decrease of unduplicated pupil percentage, we would lose on the first year around 200,000, and then and then up to 600,000 by by the third out year. So approximately a 1.2 million across 3 years. Or to put it in a per pupil terms, because I think it has an impact. We're basically losing $10,000 per student for every student that's no longer qualified under unduplicated per pupil count. And not to say that we're not doing everything that we can to up that account. For this year, when we did the base year, I think we're happy to report that all of the school forms for 100%, or maybe like there's 4 or 5 students who refused to actually do it, but we collected all the forms. Unfortunately, the data is just, it is what the data is saying. It's not because of a lack of effort of collecting those forms, because we did collect, almost 100% of the forms. So, again, as Mr. Herrera said, it's our current normal demographics right now. That's what we're seeing. And then, so we have other planning factors that was included in the first interim. The top one is just some of the salary increases that we've given during the year. For 22-23, it's still on negotiation, so nothing is reflected there. And then for the funded COLA, we follow the Department of Finance and LACO's recommendation of funded COLA. So we have, it's all 5.38 in 23-24, and for 24-25, it's 4.2. That number is probably going to change. It's probably like a historical number as we speak. And in January, we would get more definite picture of what the 3-year, of what the COLA number looks like. For CalSTRS contribution, it's a static 19.1%. The reason why it's, and then CalPERS has a change. There's a slight decrease, but we would know by March, because for CalSTRS contribution rate, it's set by the CalSTRS board around March of every year. And what they do is they look at like the investment of CalPERS and whatnot, and then they would set the rate. For CalSTRS, it's a little bit different because that requires statute. That means it requires our legislator to actually act on changing the CalSTRS rate. That's why for years, CalSTRS rate was steady. And then we have our normal step and column. And because of enrollment decline, we anticipate that we would have FTE adjustments due to enrollment decline. This might be partially offset by some of the increasing teachers that we would need for our different dual language cohort. Because as we increase grades, so we would lose teachers in our normal like classroom, and then we would have to hire for the new grades that we're doing for our dual language for both Spanish and Mandarin. So the next slide is the one-time federal revenue. Let me just indulge me in I'll just go through a brief history of like the one-time federal and state revenue, because I think it's really important for us to know like the resources that we're getting and where we're using it. So since the pandemic happened, we receive the CARES Act of around 10.7, and then we have ESSER funding of 2.9 in 2021, but we did not spend it until 21-22. Then we have the AB 86 in person and the ELO funding. And ESSER 2 happened, and then we succeedingly, like just after ESSER 2 was awarded, ESSER 3 appeared, and then we have the Emergency Connectivity Act funds, which we use for the laptops for our teachers and some of the Chromebooks, and then we have we're estimated to have an additional. We reapplied for the grant, and we received a 1.6 million in 22-23. The COVID testing grant, which LACO awarded the district. And then we have the educator effectiveness grant that ends in 6/30/2026. So we still have a few years to use it, and the district's been strategic in using it and not using it in just like one big lump sum. And then we have the ELOP funding. This is the only ongoing in all of the new revenues and new federal and state revenue that we receive. We receive 6.4, which we need to spend by the end of this year. And then the ongoing, the new money this year is 13.1. And then we have the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, which is part of the 22-23 enacted budget of 15.7. And then we have the Literacy Coaches and Reading Specialists of 1 million. This one is for three of our schools. And we also receive ESSER Homeless and Pre-K Planning Grant of about like $500,000 to combine. And then we have the Arts, Music, and Instructional Discretionary Grant of 4.7. This is part of the AB 181, which is the enacted budget of 4.7. This is separate from the Prop 20, like the Arts and Music Black Grant, the ongoing piece. This one is a one-time in nature, and then you'll have your the arts money, which we have not yet reflected in first interim, since the details on allocation methodology is not out. So in total, the district received over 100 million of federal and state funding, like new ones before COVID hit. This is 100 million. Today, when we close the books in June, we have 52 million of that one-time money, and then we receive an additional almost 33 million just this year, which is your ELOP money of 13.1, your Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant of 15.7, and then the Arts and Music of 4.7, and the Literacy Coaches and Reading Specialists grant. So we right now for 22-23 still have a balance of around 85 million. And the district has been very strategic in using it. We're not just using it, let's expand program. Because what's important for the district is to be able to sustain those programs. So, if you hear about like some district, they've used up their ESSER 2 or they're on their ESSER 3 money already. The district is not in that position because we've been very cautious on like spending it. And the question is always like, we're doing this program and we're funding it out of this categorical money. what are we going to do when the money runs out? Would we still have that program in place, or what's the strategy behind it, right? Like what's the long-term sustainability strategy behind it? So your 22-23 resources, of the 22-23 resources, there's really only 4 ongoing revenue pieces. Your LCFF base, the LCAP, which is your supplemental and concentration, your normal categorical, which is Title 1 to 4, and the ELAP funding from the state, which was new in 21-22, and they increase it in 22-23. The rest of the 22-23 resources are actually one-time in nature. So that's why, I just wanted to emphasize that fact, because in June, we would probably be adding another fiscal year to the budget, and you would be surprised on how different it is than the budget that we're presenting right now. And some of the details in the slide are just like when most of the categorical that we actually have a spending plan that was adopted by the board, and I noted like the dates that we adopted it. And some of the newer categorical either doesn't have like a statute required for a board adoption, but the district normally would still try to create a spending plan for each categorical program, whether it's required or not, because that just makes sense. So what are the next steps? We're asking the board to certify the 22-23 first interim report. In January, Governor Newsom is going to announce the 23-24 budget, and will update the board on the details on that in succeeding board meetings. In January, we're also preparing to submit the 21-22 or present the 21-22 audited report. And in March, we'll go back for the second interim reports, 22-23 second interim report. That concludes my presentation. If there's any other question. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Has it been 3 years already? When you said that, I was like, wow, it has been 3 years since you started with us.
Yes. A little over 3 years. April of 2029.
Time flies when you're crunching numbers. All right. Do we have a motion for the consideration of approval for the 2020-23 first interim financial report?
I actually had a question.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's back on like slide 5, and it just really pertains to the Fund 8, the Student Activities Fund. And I know we still have a pretty sizable surplus in that account, and I think just more of a comment to remind teachers and administration at the school sites to spend down those accounts, because I was kind of looking at, a deficit of $5,000 this year, but that means it'll take like 15 years to use up money that was earned by students 2 or 3 years ago. So I think just, that sort of encouragement to not carry over really large surpluses in those student body accounts. So we make sure that students are able to use it, within their time of being at the school. So that's my, just my comment there. But thank you for the rest of the presentation. Thanks.
Mr. Segrist?
I have a comment. Thank you so much for breaking out the acronyms. They're all there. Thank you.
I'll move to approve.
Okay,
Back to
motion
initial
by
question.
Ms. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second, Ms. Rivas. And then again, you have an opportunity for any questions or discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item number 4, consideration of approval resolution for the 2022-23 school year 14 California Schools Healthy Air Plumbing and Efficiency Program Grant Acceptance, called CalShape acronym.
Thank you, Board President Mendez-Garcia, and members of the governing board. So, Margaret, this will be another grant you can add to your next budget presentation, but the district staff has been working hard to submit a grant. This was a competitive grant that we went through. We got some good news over the Thanksgiving break, and we were approved for the CalShape grant to improve ventilation, install carbon dioxide monitors inside all classrooms. So we were approved for close to $1.6 million of funding. And as a condition of receiving the funds, we have to bring a resolution to the board accepting the grant terms so that we can proceed with these energy efficiency, ventilation improvement projects over the next 24 to 36 months at our schools.
I do have a question. Does that also include like in the air pipes, right? Like mold or things like that?
So as part of the funding here, we're going to be looking at improving our filtration systems, doing maintenance on our HVAC systems with the use of these funds, doing an assessment, which will form the basis for future funds that we can access through the state to replace the HVAC units. If this wouldn't detect that, what this detects if there's any carbon dioxide in the air, which would then indicate if we need to improve ventilation, because that impacts students and staff's ability to learn if the levels are elevated. So we do contract with a consultant, and we do inspections every 6 months of our facilities to look for things like that, and we do air quality assessments. And knock on wood that none of those issues have come up to date in our facilities.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Flores, second by Ms. Rivas. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. And we'll move on to our discussion session, starting with item 1, cabinet reports.
Thank you, President Mendez Garcia, and governing board members. This evening, we have a robust cabinet update for you to wrap up our meeting before heading out into the winter break. So we begin this evening by just sharing some highlights from the business department, personnel, education services, and then I'll wrap up with some celebratory and exciting news. Not that the others are not celebratory and exciting, but, you know, they do say they save the best for last for a reason, right? I am kidding. I'm totally kidding. Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. Herrera. We got a smile out of him.
All right, so the first update there is our facility master plan. We'll be hearing from our architectural team from Perkins Eastman at the January board meeting. And we kicked off the process at our July study session when we approved the contract to engage with them. So since then, we've been going through a process of soliciting feedback from our principals, from the rest of our management team, from our staff. A few weeks ago, we had the opportunity to hold some staff engagement meetings to hear from staff. We have a staff survey that's currently out there and active, soliciting feedback. A future step would be to begin soliciting input from our students, our parents, our community members, so we can make sure that this master plan is reflective of the voice and the needs of all of our stakeholders. So as we go through this process, we're also developing longer-term enrollment projections, and we'll be bringing in a third-party demographer to provide an official projection going out 10 years, because that is an important piece of facility improvements. We want to make sure that facility improvements that we make in the next year or two or the next 5-10 years not only meet the current needs, but future enrollment trends that will be with us as we look further into the future. So that's where we currently stand with our master plan. This is a quick synopsis of the schedule overview. We'll bring something that looks very similar to this at the January board meeting. So right now we're about halfway through the process, and the board will be receiving an update in January to provide additional input into what that master plan looks like. And we hope in the March, maybe potentially April timeframe, we wrap up the master plan so that we can start the good work of prioritizing the projects and looking at what the needs are from a dollar standpoint across all of our schools, what available funds we have in our bond program, and where we go from here. Some updated information on the state of the economy. So I'll start with the bad news first, and I got some good news on the next slide. So CalPERS and CalSTRS is a pension system that our certificated and classified employees participate here in working in school districts. And for the first time since the global financial crisis in 2009, they posted some negative financial returns in their investments for the past fiscal year that they closed out. On a positive note, if you look back at their 30-year average, they have 7% returns on their investments. And so all is well for the time being as we look forward. Although this is, one step back, they're still in a good financial position to make sure that they're fully funded so that when our school employees retire, the pension system is adequately funded to deliver on the promise of those pensions. And as we look at CalSTRS, the rate is set in stone and they're on the path to full funding. If you recall back in 2013, there was some dramatic changes to employer contribution rates where districts used to contribute 8% of every dollar of a CalSTRS member. Now it's up to 19% for every dollar that's paid out. And CalPERS has the authority to change the rate every year. So with these negative returns from the past year, we will probably be seeing updated rates as we go into 2023, 24, and beyond. And the big update that I'm sure the school board heard at the school board's conference, and it's been dominating the headlines, is there's some rough times ahead from what all the economists are saying. The Legislative Analyst's Office came out with an updated financial report, and it shows that the state has a projected budget deficit of $25 billion in the coming budget year, and so that is $41 billion less than the Budget Act projections that were just approved a couple months ago. So the state of California economy, when things are going right, it really swings back and forth, right? When things are good, things are great in California. When things are bad, things are horrible in California, right? Because we have a progressive tax system here where we generate most of our tax revenues from the highest income earners. So you recall around this time last year, there was a lot of talk of the state of California has an $80 billion surplus, right? And here we are a year later, and there's a deficit. And some more positive news as we look at the CalShape grant. We were awarded $1.6 million. Thank you for approving that resolution today, and we'll bring updates as we continue to implement that program. On the topic of filtration and making sure that we have proper ventilation in our classrooms over winter break, another purchase order that the board approved for purchasing HEPA air filters. We'll be changing all the air filter in our classrooms over the winter break as a proactive measure. And the last positive final item I have on the updates on the next slide, looking at Prop 28 funding. This was passed a few weeks ago, and so some of the details are coming out, and El Monte City School District is set to receive a little over $1.3 million per year of ongoing funding earmarked for music and arts initiatives. Now I say ongoing funding, and I put the quotation marks on there because we'll believe it when we see it, and when we see it sustained for a few years. So as more details come out, we'll bring that information back to the board for updates. We already are doing great things in the area of music and the arts here, so it's good to see that the voters in the state of California will be infusing more funds in this initiative going forward, and we'll incorporate that. Not only our district, but every district across the state of California will be receiving these funds starting next fiscal year.
Good evening. So as part of education services, we really are looking at how to strengthen our multi-tiered systems of support to support our whole child. And so we had a group of TOSAs and intervention teachers, along with our new Director of Instruction and Assessment, Dr. Torres, attend an RTI conference, Response to Intervention, to really look at how we are aligning our approach to providing academic interventions to students. Looking at how do we identify those students, what types of intervention we are providing. So for example, a lot of times intervention supports are to fill in gaps in learning, and we're looking at moving towards more of a prerequisite skills for the grade level learning that is taking place to be able to support the child in the here and now in their learning. So we're really excited about this work. We are also working with our principals last week to align our behavior expectations throughout the district and looking at our behavior matrices under the 3 expectations of be safe, be respectful, and be responsible. What does that look like in the hallway, in the classroom, in the bathroom, in the cafeteria, and so on? And so principals brought their behavior matrices and shared out how they have shared those with our students and our parents, and how they will review those returning in the new year, because it's always nice to have a review in that return. And then how we support our students, social emotional health. And so how do we check in on our students? We visit classrooms and we see teachers have on there, kind of a mood matrix, and, students they put their names under where they're feeling on that particular day. And that really gives teachers an insight into how students are feeling on that particular day so that they understand where students are coming from in terms of behavior and so on, and maybe what supports that student might need. And also how we're utilizing our school counselors to support individual and group counseling, utilizing them during our recesses and lunch recess times, and really supporting, again, the whole child. Happy to report that we continue sending students to outdoor science school. As of the end of this week, we will have sent half of our sites, and the students are really having a wonderful time. The teachers are so grateful for that outdoor learning that students are getting. And, you know, we were actually supposed to send students today, and we had to push them off until Wednesday because it was snowing up in Wrightwood. And so, you know, they're going to have a fresh batch of snow when they get there on Wednesday. And so we're really excited for them. They'll have a lot of fun. We're also excited that we have our winter programs taking place. They started last week, but we also have most of them occurring this week. And it's a great showcase of our music program that we have. I think Robert,
That was Mr. Grinch.
we had a guest appearance by Mr. Grinch attend, and so again, it's a wonderful opportunity to showcase the work of our music program and our wonderful teachers in our music programs. And then as part of our expanded learning opportunities program, we will be adding a couple of new things. Our musical theater we will have at many of our sites. And cooking will begin at Columbia, so students are going to get a great experience with the chef and learning how to cook. And then ongoing is our tennis, golf, soccer for success, kids play, and wind tree. And as part of our expanded learning opportunities program, we are required to provide programming during our intersession times. I believe it's 30 days that we need to provide. And so we will begin that on December 22nd and then January 3rd through the 6th. And that will be run by Aspire, but in partnership with Windtree Education, who will be providing classes for our students in digital music and a ceramics class. And then Aspire will be organizing field trips during that time to bowling, to the museum, ice skating, and the Rio Hondo College Conservatory, and they're also looking for other opportunities as well. And this is 9-hour programming that we provide for any students, whether they're in Aspire or not, during times that we are not in session, that our parents can bring their children to. And so that information is going out to parents to sign them up for these programs.
Okay, so we wanted to provide some updates in regards to our COVID protocols. We try to do that every month just to make sure that you're aware of what's going on, what's taking place not only in the county, but specifically within our school district. So obviously we're coming back from our Thanksgiving, and we actually did see a little bit of a surge, not only in the county, but even within our district. You see in our slides there and the information, today's reported cases was 1,986 within the county. And we know that that's probably not accurate because we know a lot of home test positive cases are taking place that aren't actually reported, but that's what came out from the county today. So we continue to monitor that and make adjustments and decisions based on that information along with our own internal information. Last year, we didn't necessarily see the surge after Thanksgiving break. We really saw it after our winter break. So if we want to try to look for some positive in this, we're hoping that as we come back from our winter break, especially with that full week after New Year's, hopefully we'll see our transmission rate, at least here within our district, lower than what we saw last year. And so we're hoping for that. Just as a reminder, we're still under Los Angeles County Department of Public Health and Cal OSHA requirements in regards to our contact tracing and our notifications. That's our notification of those that are close contacts and those that were at a facility. I'm pleased to share that we're still utilizing our 6-foot contact tracing. I think we're probably one of the only districts that are still doing that. We still feel that it's the best measure. It provides the most accurate information and allows us to actually take a personal approach in terms of informing whether it's an employee or even our families as to what they need to do and ensuring that they actually have the resources available, primarily a COVID test kit and when they could use it. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings is I'm notified that I was a close contact yesterday and so I want to test right now. And we know that it usually takes about 4 to 7 days if you are going to test positive from an exposure situation for it to actually show. So because of that, we try to give them that information as well. In regards to COVID tests, we still have our agreement through Los Angeles County Office of Education and specifically Haluna Health, where we have access to COVID tests. We sent a test home for every student and employee for Thanksgiving break. And this week, we're sending them again to our school sites to be distributed so that way they have access to those test kits to utilize at their discretion, but hopefully on that Sunday before we return back to school after our winter break. We secured the 8,000 tests just recently. We still have a good supply of tests just to use on our day-to-day basis, and we're already submitting a request for additional tests that will get us through up till spring break, and then again, our goal is to send home kits during spring break. And finally, the COVID relief bill, which actually provides up to 10 days if you test positive, or 5 days if you're caring for someone, or if you actually are having symptoms but don't test positive. That still is in place up until December 31st. That was enacted probably last February, but was retroed back to last January. It was originally set to expire in December, but was extended to December 31st, 2022. I've not heard anything in regards to a new bill or anything of an extension. But again, this bill came after us hearing that there would be no further relief as well. So depending on what happens during winter break or that time, we could possibly see another bill come through, providing some relief. But as of now, we're not aware of any. And then finally, just kind of an update in staffing. I think if you've seen it as you've been out and about, all the signs in the private businesses looking for workers to fill some vacant positions. We in education have seen that as well. We're pleased to see that we're starting to get some of those positions filled. We're starting to see a little bit more of an interest in coming back to work and working in education. So that's pleasing to see. Primarily, though, just wanted to kind of highlight, one of the big areas that many districts are facing is our ability to cover substitute in our classrooms. We've been very aggressive in the last year and this year in terms of ensuring that we have, contracts in place or sometimes securing subs and guaranteeing them that we'll have work for them just to be able to ensure coverage. When we look at our database of subs for our classrooms, we have over 75 subs, but these are subs that work for multiple districts. And so it's not just their commitment to El Monte City, but their commitment to all the districts. And so for them, they want to ensure that they have, work every day. And so if we don't have any absences as of like right now, those subs are looking at other districts. And then overnight, if we have vacancies or absences, sometimes those are the more difficult ones to fill. So through our partnerships with Scoot Education, who we utilized last year, and then recently we just went into contract with Swing, we're able to fill some of those last minute absences to ensure that we have coverage. Our goal is to make sure that we have a teacher in every classroom each day. Sometimes we had to utilize some of our additional staff members on sites for those hard-hit days, but we're pleased that we're able to, I would say, fill our class or our absences at a better fill rate than most of our neighboring districts.
Thank you, Mr. Sallenbach. I am very pleased to announce that I held the first Superintendent-Student Advisory Council meeting last week. It was on Thursday. I have to tell you, there was a lot going on Thursday, and enjoyed the mixer, enjoyed the tamalada, but by far this was just a highlight of my week. Students, we had students from each one of our school sites that represented the advisory council. And from a K-6 school site, we had a 5th and a 6th grader. From a K-8 site, we had a 7th and an 8th grader, so there was a variety there. The students had the opportunity to participate in an icebreaker, get to know one another, and then very quickly we transitioned to, you know, what are things that we can do now to improve our school district, our schools. I have to tell you, I was so impressed. I was expecting kids to share problems, but they were very quick without prompts to address things that need improvement and solutions to accompany those requests. And I was beyond impressed. 3 single-spaced notes, a page's worth of notes by the end of my time with the students. They also had the opportunity to comment and share on our nutrition program. We want to make sure that the nutrition program is meeting the needs of our students, and they had the ability to sample the Build Your Own Carne Asada bowl that was on the menu on Monday. And that was also just a wonderful experience. I learned that kids like specific condiments. They didn't all agree on the condiments, but condiments are important, and I think we would all agree, especially with the carne asada bowl, condiments can make or break it, right? So again, a wonderful experience. Our next meeting is going to be held in February. That's when we're scheduled to meet. At that time, I'm going to give the students a tour of the district office and introduce them to the different departments, and also really continue the discussion on how we can improve our school district and make it the best school district in the world. There you have an update to our most recent logo that was updated. As you can see, the logo on the left is the old logo for Rio Vista School. Rio Vista are, their mascot is the Roadrunners. And to the right, you see the update. And I want to just highlight a couple of things with the new highlight that are listed there, or with the new logo, excuse me, that are listed there. As you know, Rio Vista is home to our autism program, and so the puzzle pieces around the logo represent our wonderful autism program that serves this community. The tree is representative of the iconic trees that are on the Rio Vista campus. I thought they were captured perfectly. And we also have the Rio Hondo River that passes right behind the school. They're right next to the wash there. And then, of course, an updated image of a Roadrunner, which I think is a much better rendition for Rio Vista School. And so that's the latest logo update throughout the district. And I know several of you commented on Columbia Centennial. Happy birthday, happy 100th birthday to Columbia School. It was truly a wonderful celebration. I was very proud of the fact that from beginning to end, it was student-led, and it was a leadership day for them. And so they had the opportunity, students had the opportunity to really showcase the wonderful things that are happening at Columbia School alongside the celebration for the centennial. It was wonderful to see so many alumni come back. Many teachers that have retired were there, and they were just as excited to see all the changes on the campus. And so looking forward to continuing to celebrate the 100th year for Columbia School and seeing great things to come there at Columbia. And on Thursday, we also hosted the return of our holiday mixer. As you know, we renamed it to a holiday mixer. It used to be our annual holiday tea. We were so wonderfully happy, surprised at the turnout. Many of our staff members really made it a point to come by and to connect, reconnect, and it was just a wonderful celebration from beginning to end. I will tell you that there were new food offerings at our holiday mixer, and there were requests for some of the old, so we will be bringing back the eggnog and the stuffed jalapenos. But all that to say that it's just wonderful moving forward to know that, our staff is just always comes together, and we're so appreciative of everything that they do, and it was an opportunity for us to be able to do so. And I think Dr. Pinedo already highlighted this with that Mr. Grinch special appearance and that celebration. Was that at Shripser School? Shripser, right? So we do have over the next few weeks, this week and a few presentations next week, our schools will be hosting many of the performances, and I just want to highlight that. If you take a look at your board calendar, they have all been populated there. Feel free to let me know if you'd like to stop by, and we'd love to entertain or host board members that would like to visit school performances. It is a wonderful time, and we're very proud of our musical programs, and so definitely want to make sure that you have access to the winter performances taking place. And lastly, I do want to acknowledge that our winter break is almost, it's right around the corner. Our last day of school for students is Wednesday, December 21st. It is a unique date. It's not a date that we're sharing with other school districts in our neighboring community. And so we will be here until Wednesday, and then we return on January the 9th. And so I think President Mendez Garcia said it best earlier. We do hope that people take the time to disconnect, refresh, renew, and wishing everybody happy holidays and a wonderful wishes for the new year on behalf of the entire school district. Any questions or comments?
I'd like to make a comment about the Roadrunner. I really like the additional focus because rather than a happy-go-lucky, he looks very serious, like he's ready to learn. That is beautifully done in the incorporation
that.
of the river. I like it.
Thank
El
you.
Correcaminos.
Yeah.
Also, the Student Advisory Council, I recommend that you put in for a golden bell for that.
So in order for us to apply for Golden Bell, we have to have something in place for 3 years, but we have
For
a
3
list.
years, okay.
Yeah, we have a list, Mr. Segrist. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Cabinet, for the presentation and taking extra time to put this together. Okay, moving on. For item number 2, it's future discussion items. And then we also have item 3, which is the CSBA, the annual school board conference sharing. Kind of want to also put those kind of two together, right? Just for timing purposes. One, we know that actually today went live, so we're able to see any of the presentations through the on-demand website link that just got sent to us today. But are there any specific items that you want to share, 1 or 2 from CSBA that you want to share with the group, and then and or that you would like to maybe add to a future discussion or study session in the future?
I was actually going to ask if we could table item 3 just because of the hour. And I like in the past when we've had a chance to really discuss. So I know we're looking at maybe a study session in January. So I kind of feel like at this point,
Very good.
I'd rather
recommendation.
give ourselves a little more time than to feel like we're kind of at the end and wrapping up.
Yes. Is the board in agreement? Yeah, we'll definitely then hold item 3 for then a possible study session we're looking at in January.
And then I wanted to also add for maybe our January meeting, if we could review our subcommittee membership, especially with our new member, and just have that be an item to revisit what our subcommittees are and you know, who is taking part in the different ones.
Yes. And then also too, I know in January we had kind of we can decide whether we want to also take the time to study session to just review our governance handbook. Just, we always said kind of like at the beginning of the year in January, if there's anything else we want to kind of review or add or at that time. So we'll definitely put an agenda together for a possible January study session, it looks like, including sharing on the annual school board conference, committees, the handbook. Anything else board members would like to kind of add for any future discussion or study sessions items? Okay, perfect. All right, then we will adjourn today's meeting.
Could I interrupt for one second? I hate to interrupt, but I would like to announce something. The passing of Frank Ogaz, a former high school board member from our district, whose dream was fulfilled. If you ever get a chance, go down to Fernando R. Ledesma and see the incredible gymnasium that they have there. His dream was to produce a state-of-the-art continuation school. It's beautifully done. And the president, the national PTA president, came there and gave a talk to the students telling them that she too had once gone to a continuation high school, and it just thrilled those kids to death. But it's a wonderful sight. But I really am sorry about the passing of Franco Gaz. He gave a great amount of time to our district. Thank you. Sorry.
So we will conclude today's meeting at 8:16 PM, and then happy holidays.
Beautiful job.